For 100 years, one of the safest bets in the world was that human beings would keep eating. Not just eating, overeating. Entire industries were quietly built on it. The supermarket aisle engineered for craving, the fast food value meal, the diet that fails just often enough to sell you the next one, a trillion-dollar machine, all resting on a single assumption: that appetite always wins. Then came a drug that turns appetite off. It's called semaglutide. You know it as Ozempic. And in about 3 years, it has started doing something almost nothing in economics ever does. It is making people want less. The numbers arrived frighteningly fast. By 2025, roughly 1 in 8 American adults had taken a drug in this family. The share more than doubled in barely 18 months. And for the first time in decades, the country's obesity rate actually fell. This was the moment the food industry had quietly dreaded. Because when these patients sit down to eat, they simply eat less. And the data now shows it lands straight on the till. Households on these drugs cut their grocery spending by about 5% within 6 months, more for wealthier ones. Snacks, sweets, and baked goods fell the hardest. Fast food and coffee runs dropped too. The bet on bottomless appetite was, for millions of people, suddenly off. But here is where the headlines run too far. The food industry did not collapse. People on these drugs buy fewer items, yet often spend more. Trading chips for protein, soda for yogurt. They eat out more, not less. This isn't the death of the food economy. It's a forced renegotiation of what it sells. To see what that renegotiation is worth, you don't look at a grocery store. You look at a small Scandinavian country of 6 million people, and the one company that nearly became its economy. The company is Novo Nordisk, a Danish maker of insulin for a century, transformed almost overnight into the maker of the world's most wanted drug. By 2023, it had passed the luxury empire behind Louis Vuitton to become the most valuable company in all of Europe. At its peak, Novo Nordisk was worth around $570 billion, larger than the entire yearly output of Denmark itself. One firm selling essentially one kind of molecule had outgrown its own nation's economy on paper. Now that comparison is a little unfair. A company's stock market value isn't the same thing as a country's yearly income. But the deeper point holds, and it's the unsettling one. Novo had become the engine of Denmark. It paid billions in tax. It drove a huge share of the country's exports and, in some years, a fifth of all its job growth. When Novo's sales boomed, Denmark's whole economy looked golden. Economists had a quiet name for the danger in that. They called it the Nokia risk. Finland once rode a single phone company to the top, then watched its economy lurch when that company fell. Denmark had built the same beautiful, fragile trap. And in 2025, the trap sprang. But before the fall, there was a wall. And the wall was the price. For most of this story, the miracle came with a number attached, around $1,000 a month, sometimes more. At that price, the drug that could shrink a nation's waistline mostly shrank the waistlines of people who could already afford it. The weight loss users skewed richer. The new thinness became quietly a kind of status, a wealth you could wear. This is where the wildest claims pile up. That emptier stadiums, smaller airplane seats, even jet fuel savings were coming as the nation slimmed down. Some of that traces to real data. A lot of it is speculation dressed up as a trend. The grounded story was simpler and harsher, a powerful medicine rationed by income. Insurance mostly refused to pay for so-called lifestyle weight loss. Medicare was barred from covering obesity drugs at all. So the line between who stayed heavy and who got thin began to follow the oldest line there is, the one between rich and poor. Then, in late 2025, the politics caught up. Under a new pricing deal, the U.S. government pushed the price of these drugs down toward $350 a month and lower over time, and opened Medicare to cover them for the first time. And the needle itself began to disappear. The first weight loss pills arrived, priced to undercut the injections. The thing that had been a luxury was being deliberately turned into a mass-market product. which only makes the last question matter more. Because there's a catch built into the chemistry. These drugs work for exactly as long as you take them. Stop, and for most people, the appetite comes roaring back, and so does much of the weight. The same pattern showed up in the shopping data. About a third of users quit during the study, and when they did, their grocery baskets crept back to where they'd started, sometimes worse. The off switch on hunger has no memory. Sit with that, because it is the real engine of this economy. The product isn't weight loss. The product is a monthly subscription to your own appetite, one your body cancels the moment you stop paying. That is a near-perfect business, and the market knew it. So everyone came for it. Novo's American rival surged, generic copies spread, price wars began, and the company that had outgrown a nation suddenly looked mortal. In 2025, Novo Nordisk cut its forecast twice, replaced its chief executive, and announced 9,000 job cuts, most of them in Denmark. Its value fell by hundreds of billions. The country that rode one molecule up began carefully to ride it back down and slashed its growth forecast by half. None of this means the boom is over. More people take these drugs every month, and cheaper prices and pills will pull in millions more. This is not a bubble bursting. It's a market growing up and finally revealing what it actually is. A century-old bet that we would always want more ran into a drug that makes us want less. And the economy did what it always does. It found the one thing more profitable than selling you food you can't stop eating, selling you the reason you stopped. The hunger was never the product. The hunger was the customer.